Let's take a dive into Team 1 Degree's journey around the challenge. Earthquakes, floods, cyclones, droughts, bushfires. Dealing with natural disasters have become more crucial now than ever. Natural disasters are becoming more and more unpredictable every year, resulting into severe impacts over all walks of life. From our secondary research, we found that floods, storms, and droughts are the most impactful natural disasters. These three types of natural disasters are responsible for 90% of all damages around the world. And we decided to focus specifically on cyclones. There has been a 32% rise in the number of cyclones in last 5 years in India and Bangladesh. Over the last decade, over 3 cyclones hit the coastal areas of Bay of Bengal every year and has caused a cumulative damage of $11.5 billion. Fortunately, all of our team members are from either India or Bangladesh, and some of us have experienced cyclones firsthand. This gave us a head start in terms of understanding the journey. In the first round of interviews, we talked to people who experienced cyclones in the villages of Pondicherry, India, and the coastal town of Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. Their stories were heartbreaking. Some lost their livelihood, and some struggled to get clean water. Our interviews helped us understand what goes on after a cyclone passes. What are more immediate challenges? How are they tackled, and by whom? We adapted our questionnaire based on every individual's story. 3 major pain points surfaced: damaged shelters and loss of livelihood, such as farms and agricultural lands that are salinized; water contamination and lack of sanitation that cause multiple disease outbreak; and finally, connectivity. Both roads and telecommunications network gets disrupted. From a survey conducted with employees of Care Bangladesh, we found out that the most dire needs for the community after a cyclone passes are drinking water and proper sanitation. We continued building hypotheses around the problem of water contamination and asked ourselves, are people really educated enough to understand the importance of sanitization? How do people source water for washing after a cyclone? Why can't they use the tube wells after a cyclone passes? With these questions unanswered, we interviewed a group of experts. We got a major breakthrough when we discovered that the aftermath of almost all cyclones includes diarrhea, cholera outbreak in the rural community. We also found out the reasons behind this, which was the damaged community toilets that results into water contamination in the lakes and ponds, which were the primary sources of water for the rural communities. Using this water for washing, and in many cases not washing hands properly after using toilet, is a primary reason for the outbreak. Therefore, our problem statement is: in cyclone-prone areas of India and Bangladesh, lower middle-class people suffer from an outbreak of bacteria-borne diseases immediately after a cyclone hits, due to deteriorated levels of hygiene and sanitation. Let us now tell you the story of Rahela Banu. Rahela is a middle-aged woman, has 3 kids. For her and her husband, the only asset is their house and the cattle. Despite countless difficulties, she sends her eldest daughter to school. One day, Rahela heard a loud cyclone warning in her neighborhood. The volunteers of the Cyclone Preparedness Program were asking everyone to go to the local cyclone shelter. The first thought in her mind was how to save the cattle. Finding no appropriate way to do so, she eventually gave up and went to the cyclone shelter with her family. After 18 hours, the volunteers informed everyone that the cyclone had passed. When she came back to her home, all she could find was the ruins of her treasured household. Now she'll have to rebuild the house again, but she has to feed her children too. She heard there are a few relief spots in the neighborhood, and with her entire family, she rushed there in hope of finding some food. The relief agents were really helpful and gave her some food, drinking water, soaps, towel, toilet cups, etc. Rahela comes back to fix her house. The NGO workers come along and ask her if she needs any help. She sees some of the NGO workers building some shared toilets in the neighborhood. With the relief water saved up for drinking and cooking for the 5-member family, she takes a jar and goes to the local pond to collect water for washing. She brings the pond water and keeps in a reserve jar for later use. Later in the day, she goes to the toilet with the toilet cup provided by the relief workers and water from their pond water reserve. For those of us who are not familiar with the toilet cup, it looks something like this, and it's widely used for washing in the Indian subcontinent. The water she used to wash her hands before cooking also came from the pond. She could not anticipate or comprehend that the pond water was contaminated because of the damaged toilets around it during the cyclone. Within a day, Rahela suffered from diarrhea, and with her continuing ill hygiene practices, she caused the spread of the disease to her kids, who she took care of, and the husband through the foods she cooked. Soon she found out that the entire neighborhood is suffering from this disease. However, why this was happening was beyond her understanding. Her continuing suffering with damaged house, salinized land, and no earning, the deteriorating health of her family was an unbearable load of struggle. At this point, we knew Rahela's journey. However, there was still a few unanswered questions. Why would she not wash her hands properly when the NGO workers gave her soap and briefed the community on the importance of sanitation? We went back to the NGO employees for answers. The answer was, people don't understand that washing hands is as important as drinking clean water. More importantly, at that point in time, they think it's a hassle. They are not receptive to training, as in their view, they have bigger things to worry about, and washing hands is not that important. And they go back to the traditional sources of water, the ponds, which are now contaminated. We narrowed our focus down to how might we help the cyclone-affected people of India and Bangladesh to sanitize themselves in order to avoid a diarrhea-cholera outbreak. We tried to come up with a solution that would allow these people to sanitize themselves very easily. Our first prototype was a water and antibacterial fluid-filled pod. Users would have to crush it to wash their hands. However, when we took this solution to test with a few users, the feedback was not so good. It was going to be costly and ineffective. We focused on how to integrate a solution in something that these people already use. This led to the prototype version 2. We designed a toilet cup that would have 2 layers of filtering, and the filter discs will be placed on the inner side of the nozzle. The alum layer would clean the soil particles. Activated charcoal is proven to be effective in killing bacteria and absorbing toxins. This product received great feedback. However, we thought we could go one step further. In our prototype version 3, we included a soap dispenser in the newly built chamber around the neck of the cup. This is going to be very easy to use. Water from any source can be taken into the cup, and from the nozzle, clean water would come out. Even though this water won't be clean enough for drinking, it would be good for washing hands. We will sell these toilet cups to the NGOs on $2 per cup rate. We will have a 20 cents per cup margin. The NGOs will then distribute this to the people. In their existing practice, NGOs do have toilet cups as a part of their kit. Our easy cups will be replacing the traditional cups. To get this message across to the community, our awareness campaign is targeted towards school-going children who are more adaptive to new technology. We firmly believe we would be able to make a difference for the people suffering from cyclones.